Rain hammered the windshield in unrelenting waves, each drop exploding like tiny glass shards against the pane. The wipers fought a losing battle, swiping furiously before surrendering to blur again. The road ahead was a smeared river of headlights and shadow, a perfect mirror of the storm inside her. Catherine kept both hands clenched on the steering wheel, knuckles ghost white, wrists trembling. The air inside the car was thick with the scent of wet leather and salt from the tears she could no longer hide. She hadn't realized she'd been crying again until the tears reached her chin and cooled against her skin. The dashboard light flickered weakly across her face. In the dim glow she saw what she had become. Eyes swollen, mascara washed into dark rivers, mouth pressed into a line so tight it ached. Her chest felt hollow, scraped clean by the kind of grief that doesn't make noise anymore. On her finger, the wedding ring still caught the light, a fragile circle of gold clinging to a promise that no longer existed. She turned it slowly, the metal cold and alien against her skin. Once it had been a talisman of faith. Now it was a scar she hadn't figured out how to remove. From the radio came a familiar melody, a soft guitar intro, then the voice she'd once called the sound of forever. Their song. The one they'd danced to barefoot under fairy lights on their wedding night. The one Cooper had whispered to as he held her close, his breath warm against her ear. "You'll always be my only one." The lyrics unfurled now like knives wrapped in silk. She reached out and turned the volume down, but the words stayed, echoing in her head, refusing to let her forget. "It wasn't supposed to end like this," she whispered into the static. "I didn't want to destroy us. I just wanted to know the truth." The storm swallowed her confession. Outside, lightning slit the clouds, and for a brief second her reflection glared back at her from the glass, pale, wet, unfamiliar. A stranger in her own body. Her breath came shallow, almost ragged, and she pressed a hand to her chest as though she could still a heart determined to break itself. She told herself not to think, but memories are merciless things. They rush in like floodwater through a broken dam. And suddenly she was 12 again, crouched on a staircase behind the carved wooden banister of her parents' friends, the Millers. They were the couple everyone envied. Mrs. Miller with her soft laughter and gentle hands, Mr. Miller with his polished shoes and a smile that could fill a room. Catherine used to think they were proof that love could stay pure forever. That night had smelled of roast chicken and rain. The adults had been laughing in the kitchen, their voices weaving through the hum of conversation. Then came a sound Catherine didn't understand. A crash, a scream, her mother's voice cutting through the house like broken glass. She had crept halfway down the stairs before she saw them. Mrs. Miller standing in the doorway, shaking, eyes wild, and Mr. Miller following. A woman Catherine didn't know clutching her coat to her chest. The words that followed were not meant for a child's ears. They were sharp, ugly things, betrayal spoken in fragments. Catherine remembered how Mrs. Miller had fallen to her knees, whispering through tears, "He said I was enough." It was the first time Catherine had seen love die. Later, she'd heard adults murmuring, "You never really know anyone." That sentence lodged itself deep inside her. It became her silent mantra. From that day on, she promised herself she would never be blindsided like Mrs. Miller. She would never trust completely. Never let love trick her into vulnerability. The storm outside cracked again, snapping her back to the present. The same electric fear that had wrapped itself around that little girl's heart all those years ago, now pulsed through the woman behind the wheel. She pressed harder on the accelerator. The car surged forward through the rain. The road wound through the outskirts of Austin, familiar yet distant. The same route she and Cooper had driven so many nights before, talking about nothing and everything, arguing playfully about playlists and dinner plans. Those drives had felt endless then, infinite. Now every mile felt like an ending. A sign blurred past, next exit home. The word twisted something in her chest. She didn't know if home still existed, not after what she'd seen, after what she'd done. Her mind replayed it all in jagged flashes. Anna's laughter echoing down the hall, Cooper's quiet smile that no longer belonged to her, the sound of the rain beginning that morning when everything fell apart. Her voice trembled as she spoke to no one. "They say curiosity killed the cat," she murmured. "But no one ever says love buried the body." The wipers squealed once more across the glass. Ahead, the lightning illuminated the faint outline of her house. Her once safe haven now standing like a mausoleum against the night. She pulled into the driveway, but didn't turn off the engine. The car hummed beneath her, a fragile heartbeat in the storm. She sat there, staring at the faint glow of the porch light Cooper had installed the summer before, remembering how he'd insisted on calling it their little lighthouse. Back then, she'd laughed and kissed him. Now she could only stare at it through the rain and think, even lighthouses can't save ships that sail into storms they created. A sob caught in her throat. She covered her mouth, but the sound escaped anyway, raw, human, defeated. When the tears finally slowed, she exhaled a long, shaking breath. Outside, thunder rolled again, gentler this time, as though the storm itself were tired. She whispered into the empty car. It started long before Anna, before Cooper, before any of this. It started the night I learned that love always leaves, and I swore I'd never let it leave me first. Her fingers turned the ring one last time, before she closed her eyes. The rain kept falling, relentless and cleansing, washing the past against the present until they were indistinguishable. And with each breath, Catherine could feel the story rewinding, back through every mistake, every choice, every fear that led her here. Because the truth was simple, brutal, and unavoidable. This storm wasn't punishment. It was a consequence. And the night was just beginning to tell her why. Morning sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, painting soft, uneven stripes across the bed. Catherine stirred first, as she always did. For a moment, her mind hovered in that fragile space between dream and memory, before the days waitfully returned. The clock read 6:47 a.m. She could hear the faint hum of the coffee maker from the kitchen, the same sound that had begun every morning for 5 years. Cooper had a habit of waking before her, preparing breakfast with the precision of a man who believed in small rituals. It was one of the things she'd fallen in love with, that quiet steadiness. She lay still, eyes half open, watching the shadows move along the wall. The house was too calm now, as though the walls themselves held their breath. Back then she had called it peace. Now she wondered if it had been silence. When she finally got up, she slipped on her robe and padded to the kitchen. The smell of toasted bread and coffee wrapped around her like nostalgia. Cooper stood by the counter, sleeves rolled, a half-smile forming when he noticed her. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said. His voice carried that warm rasp that used to melt her resolve. She leaned against the doorway, watching him spread butter on toast. "You're too chipper for a Monday." He chuckled. "Somebody has to balance your morning sarcasm." She smiled faintly, but it was a careful smile, practiced, polite. She moved toward him and pressed a kiss to his cheek, the kind of gesture that looked tender from the outside but had grown mechanical. He noticed, though he didn't show it. Cooper had the kind of empathy that could feel pain without confronting it. He slid her a cup of coffee and asked, "How'd you sleep?" "Fine," she lied. He nodded, pretending to believe her. They sat across from each other at the breakfast table, surrounded by the quiet hum of their house. The clock ticking, the refrigerator sighing, the soft rustle of leaves against the window. It was the kind of morning people posted online, captioned with simple joys. But Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that something essential had gone missing, like a favorite song played one key too low. She looked at Cooper. His hair was still damp from the shower, his sleeves rolled neatly to the elbow. Everything about him radiated reliability. The man who remembered her favorite tea, who left sticky notes in her purse, who never forgot anniversaries. The kind of man anyone would feel lucky to marry. And yet, beneath the surface of gratitude, she felt an ache she couldn't name. It wasn't unhappiness. It was unease. The kind that comes when you love deeply but never fully trust the love you're given. Later that day, Catherine sat at her desk in the small office they shared. She was a freelance designer, patient with colors but not with people. Her screensaver glowed with a photo from their honeymoon in Greece. Cooper was laughing, sunburned, his arm around her shoulders. She remembered how safe that laugh had made her feel. But safety, she'd learned, was not the same as peace. She worked mechanically, the way she always did when her thoughts grew too loud. Around noon, Cooper came in with a sandwich and a grin. "Fuel," he said, placing the plate beside her. She looked up. "You don't have to do that every day." He shrugged. "Maybe I like taking care of you." The words should have warmed her. Instead, she felt something twist inside. That quiet fear that if she leaned too hard into his care, she might become dependent. Vulnerable. Like Mrs. Miller, who had once trusted completely. She forced a smile. You're going to spoil me. That's the plan. He kissed her forehead before leaving, and for a second, she let herself believe the lie that love like this couldn't crack. But cracks don't announce themselves. They whisper through routine. That night, they met friends for dinner. The restaurant was candlelit and cozy, filled with the murmur of laughter and clinking glasses. Across the table, their friends, Marcus and Dana, teased them about being the perfect couple. You two make marriage look easy, Dana said, eyes gleaming with half-envy. Catherine laughed. That's because Cooper does all the work. Cooper squeezed her hand under the table. Not true, he said softly. The gesture should have felt intimate. Instead, Catherine felt a sudden wave of guilt, as though she was performing a role she didn't quite deserve. Marcus leaned back, smiling. Seriously, what's your secret? 5 years and you still look at each other like newlyweds. Catherine hesitated. Cooper spoke first. Trust, he said simply. That's the one thing you can't fake. The word hung in the air like smoke. Trust. Catherine's fork clattered slightly against her plate. She forced a laugh to smooth over the sound, but her mind was already spiraling. Trust. She wanted to believe she trusted him. She wanted to believe she wasn't like her mother, always scanning for danger in the calmest rooms. But even as she smiled and nodded through the rest of the evening, she could feel the shadow of doubt curling quietly beneath her ribs. When they got home, she undressed in silence. Cooper wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. You okay? He murmured. She hesitated, then said, Yeah, just tired. He kissed her neck. We should plan a trip soon. You've been overworking again. Maybe, she whispered. But even as she said it, her mind wandered to the word trust again. It echoed through the dark, soft but insistent. That night, as Cooper drifted to sleep beside her, Catherine lay awake staring at the ceiling. In the dim light, the shadows above her looked like cracks spreading through plaster, or veins through glass. She traced them with her eyes, wondering if they were new, or if they had always been there, waiting for her to notice. The rain had come suddenly that Thursday evening, drenching Austin in a silver curtain that blurred traffic lights into watercolor. Catherine sat at her desk, trying to focus on a client proposal, when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Kathy, it's Anna. Can I see you? For a moment she froze. It had been nearly 4 years since she'd last spoken to Anna, her college roommate, her mirror once upon a time. The two had been inseparable, late-night confessions, shared heartbreaks, endless laughter over cheap wine and cheaper decisions. Then adulthood had arrived, carrying jobs, marriages, relocations, and the quiet erosion of closeness. Catherine stared at the message, unease and nostalgia colliding in her chest. She typed back slowly. Of course. Where are you? When Anna arrived an hour later, she was almost unrecognizable. Her beauty was still magnetic, that same effortless kind that filled a room, but it had dulled at the edges. Her mascara had smudged, and her smile trembled as if held together by habit alone. Kathy. Her voice cracked on the name. Catherine crossed the room instinctively, wrapping her arms around her. Hey, it's okay. You're here. Anna clung to her like someone afraid to let go. When she finally pulled back, her eyes shimmered with exhaustion. Can I sit? She asked softly. Of course. Catherine guided her to the couch and poured a glass of water. What happened? Anna stared into the glass as though trying to find her reflection there. Everything fell apart. The words came out like a confession, fragile and small. She took a shaky breath. My partner, the business, the life I built, it's gone. He emptied the accounts, disappeared, left me with debt collectors calling and no savings. I can't even make rent this month. Catherine felt her heart sink. Oh my God, Anna. She reached across and took her friend's hand, squeezing it tight. You're not alone, okay? We'll figure something out. Anna shook her head. I don't even know where to start. Catherine hesitated only a second before saying the words that would change everything. Stay with us. Anna blinked. What? Here. With me and Cooper. Just for a while. Until you get back on your feet. Katy, no. I couldn't. You could and you will. It's settled. Catherine smiled, her voice warm, decisive. Compassion had always been her reflex. But deep down, in a place she didn't want to admit existed, something else stirred, a quiet satisfaction that she could save someone, that she could protect what others had lost. Later that night, when Cooper came home, she was waiting in the living room. He noticed her tense posture before she even spoke. Hey, he said, setting down his briefcase. Rough day. She hesitated. Do you remember Anna? From college. Anna, the one who used to come to your birthday dinners? That's her. Yeah, of course. Why? She's going through something bad. She lost her business, everything. I told her she could stay here for a while. Cooper's brow furrowed. Here. Just until she figures things out. She doesn't have anywhere else. He rubbed the back of his neck. Honey, I get it, but what? She pressed. He sighed. It's not that I don't want to help. I just think it's complicated. You're home a lot. I work long hours. I don't want either of you uncomfortable. She crossed her arms. So what are you saying? That I can't help my best friend? That's not what I'm saying, he said gently. I'm just saying, think it through. Boundaries matter. Her voice sharpened. Boundaries? She's lost everything, Cooper. She's not some stranger. I know. He held her gaze. I'm just asking. Are you sure this is what you want? Catherine's tone softened, pleading. She needs me. He paused, seeing the conviction in her eyes, and exhaled. Okay. We'll make it work. She smiled and kissed his cheek. Thank you. You're a good man. But even as she said it, Cooper's unease lingered. Something in his chest whispered that this decision, born from kindness, might open doors neither of them could close again. Anna moved in 2 days later, arriving with 2 suitcases, a duffel bag, and a faint scent of vanilla that seemed to fill the house within minutes. She was all apologies at first, cooking dinner, cleaning the kitchen, insisting she'd only stay a week or 2. The first few days were light, even fun. Catherine found herself laughing again. Real laughter, the kind that came from the belly, not politeness. Anna had a gift for making ordinary moments shine. She'd play old songs while cooking, twirling around the kitchen with a wooden spoon in hand. Cooper would chuckle, shaking his head as he walked past. She hasn't changed a bit, he'd say. No, Catherine would reply, smiling. She really hasn't. But as days turned into weeks, subtle shifts began to creep in. So quiet at first they were easy to dismiss. Anna started waking early, joining Cooper for morning coffee before Catherine got out of bed. She laughed at his dry jokes, remembered how he liked his toast slightly burnt, complimented his shirts. She filled the house with noise, music, chatter, perfume, a kind of brightness that felt both comforting and intrusive. One evening, Catherine came home from work to find Anna and Cooper on the couch, watching a movie. Anna was sitting cross-legged, wrapped in Catherine's throw blanket. The sight struck her like déjà vu, the ease, the closeness, though there was nothing explicitly wrong. Still, something inside her twisted. That quiet, unhealed part of her that had watched Mrs. Miller cry at the kitchen table all those years ago. At dinner, she said lightly, "You two seem to be getting along." Anna grinned. "Your husband is the only person who laughs at my terrible puns." Cooper smiled. "They're not that bad." "See," Anna said, elbowing him playfully. Catherine forced a laugh. "Careful, or I'll start getting jealous." The words came out teasingly, but her chest tightened even as she said them. Cooper reached for her hand beneath the table and gave it a small squeeze, a silent reassurance. But his thumb lingered only a moment before retreating. That night, when they went to bed, Catherine stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying Anna's laughter echoing through the living room. Cooper was already asleep beside her, his breathing steady. She turned to face him, searching his expression in the dark. He looked peaceful, innocent. "You're imagining things," she told herself. "She's your friend. He's your husband. There's nothing to fear." But fear had a way of surviving logic. It grew quietly, like mold beneath wallpaper, invisible until it was too late to stop. At first, it was the smallest things. Anna's perfume lingering on the hallway mirror. Her laughter echoing through the kitchen after Cooper said something mildly funny. A A shirt of his folded neatly on the laundry chair, by her, not Catherine. None of it was incriminating. All of it was harmless. And yet, each tiny moment felt like a pin pressed gently into the skin of Catherine's trust. She told herself not to overthink it. She told herself she was just tired, that work had been draining, that her mother's voice, that old warning about love and loyalty, was just noise from a past she should have long outgrown. But one evening, while loading the dishwasher, she noticed Anna's reflection in the window. She was leaning against the counter, wearing one of Catherine's old t-shirts, loose, faded, soft from years of wear. Catherine froze. "Is that my shirt?" she asked, keeping her tone light. Anna glanced down. "Oh, this? I found it in the laundry pile. I thought it was yours, but it's so comfy. I couldn't resist." She laughed. "You don't mind, do you?" Catherine smiled tightly. "No, of course not." But she did mind. Deeply. That night, as she folded laundry in their bedroom, Catherine stared at the empty space where that shirt used to be. She'd bought it during her first year with Cooper, a lazy Saturday at Target. They'd been holding hands, laughing about nothing. The shirt wasn't special, but now it felt like something stolen. The weeks blurred. Anna became part of the house's rhythm. Too much a presence to be a guest, too gracious to be confronted. She cooked elaborate dinners, filled the fridge with her favorite wines, and started joining them on their Sunday morning jogs. One morning, Catherine woke late to find the two of them returning from a run, breathless and laughing, sweat glistening on their foreheads. Cooper's hand brushed Anna's as they entered the kitchen. A fleeting, thoughtless gesture, but Catherine's stomach twisted anyway. "Morning," she said, her voice even. "Hey, sleepyhead." Anna grinned. "We didn't want to wake you." Catherine forced a smile. "How thoughtful." Cooper caught the edge in her tone but said nothing. He poured her coffee, the same way he always did, but his eyes didn't quite meet hers. That was the first time she saw it, the distance. Not emotional. Not even deliberate. Just a subtle shift, like gravity had changed direction. A few nights later, the three of them sat on the porch after dinner. The air was warm, humming with crickets. Anna poured more wine into everyone's glasses, her laughter floating lightly between sips. Catherine listened, half present, half somewhere else, replaying old memories of her mother and Mr. Miller, those soft-voiced arguments through thin walls, the night everything ended. She remembered the look on Mrs. Miller's face. The way disbelief had broken into quiet, exhausted grief. That same look now threatened to creep across Catherine's own reflection in the wineglass. Anna leaned forward, her tone playful. "Cooper, I swear, you're the only man who can talk about spreadsheets and somehow make it sound interesting." Catherine raised a brow. "You think that's interesting?" Anna giggled. "Maybe I just appreciate stability. God knows I've had enough chaos." Catherine set her glass down. "You'll get your balance back. You always do." Anna turned to her, smiling, a soft, almost pitying smile. "You've always been the strong one, Kathy." The use of Kathy made something in her bristle. Only Cooper called her that now. That night, after Anna went to bed, Cooper lingered in the kitchen, cleaning up. Catherine joined him, silent at first, then said, "Do you enjoy her company?" He looked up, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean she makes you laugh." He frowned slightly. "She's funny." "Funny," Catherine echoed, her voice thin. He set down the dish towel. "Kathy, what are you getting at?" "Nothing," she said too quickly. "Just an observation." He studied her. "If something's bothering you, say it." She hesitated, then looked away. "I don't want to be that person, jealous, suspicious. I trust you." He moved closer, his hand brushing her arm. "You have no reason not to." She nodded, but inside, something whispered. "Are you sure?" Over the next few days, the house began to feel like a stage, each of them actors pretending not to notice the growing tension in the air. Anna still played her part beautifully. She was charming, helpful, unassuming. But her presence had begun to fill every corner, every silence. Catherine felt herself shrinking in her own home, like a guest in a life she had built. One afternoon, Catherine returned early from a client meeting. The house was quiet, too quiet. She dropped her keys by the door and called out, "Anyone home?" No answer. She moved through the hallway, her heels clicking softly against the floorboards. Then she heard it. Laughter, faint but distinct, coming from the backyard. She stepped to the window. Cooper and Anna were out by the garden, kneeling beside the flower bed. He was showing her how to trim the lavender plants, his hand guiding hers. Something in Catherine's chest splintered. Not because they were doing anything wrong, but because it looked so natural, so easy. As though the world had rearranged itself to make space for them. And she was the one out of place. When they noticed her, Cooper straightened, guilt flickering across his face before he could hide it. "Hey," he said. "You're home early." "Traffic was light," she said evenly. "Looks like you're both keeping busy." Anna smiled. "Your husband's teaching me gardening." Who knew he was such a natural? Catherine's lips curved in what might have passed for a smile. "He's full of surprises." That night she couldn't sleep. The storm outside had begun again. Rain tapping against the windows like restless fingers. She sat on the edge of the bed, her wedding ring cold against her thumb. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe she wasn't replaying her mother's story. But the more she tried to silence the voice of doubt, the louder it became. At 2:14 a.m., she crept to the kitchen for water. The hallway was dark, except for a sliver of light spilling from the living room. Anna was there, curled on the couch, wearing one of Cooper's sweatshirts. She looked up, startled. "Oh, couldn't sleep either?" Catherine's voice was calm, too calm. "That's his sweatshirt." Anna blinked, then smiled faintly. "It was cold. I didn't think he'd mind." Catherine said nothing, only nodded and turned away. But inside, something final clicked into place, a small, irrevocable fracture in her trust. By the time she returned to bed, the decision had already begun forming in the quiet corners of her mind. If doubt wouldn't leave her, she would confront it. Not through accusation but proof. Because the only way to stop fearing betrayal, she thought, was to test whether it could really happen. The idea came to Catherine like a whisper. Quiet, almost reasonable. It arrived on a sleepless night when the house felt like it was breathing against her skin. The rain a soft pulse against the windows. She lay awake beside Cooper, staring at the faint glow of the alarm clock. 2:47 a.m. Her mind replayed the past few weeks in jagged flashes. Anna's laughter drifting through the hallway. Cooper's distracted smile. The smell of vanilla that lingered on his jacket. Each memory dissolved into the next, until thought and suspicion blurred into one another. What if it's happening again? The question was poisonous, but she couldn't stop sipping from it. And then came the whisper. "You don't have to wonder. You can find out." At first she dismissed it. It was absurd, manipulative, childish, even. But the longer she lay there, the more seductive it became. It wasn't about catching anyone. It was about reassurance. About proving she was nothing like Mrs. Miller. The woman who had trusted blindly and been destroyed by it. If she could test the foundation, maybe she could finally stop fearing the cracks. The next evening, Catherine stood by the window watching the rain streak down the glass. The living room was dim, lit only by the soft golden glow of a lamp. Anna entered quietly, her hair damp from a shower, wearing one of her silky robes. "Long day?" she asked. Catherine turned to her, heartbeat heavy. "Anna, can we talk?" Anna's brows knit. "Of course. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she began too quickly. "I just need a favor." Anna sat on the couch, curious. "Okay." Catherine hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I need your help with something. It's going to sound strange." Anna laughed nervously. "You're scaring me a little." "It's not like that," Catherine said. I need to know something. About Cooper. About us." Anna's expression softened with concern. "Kathy, please just listen." Catherine's voice wavered. "You've seen how distant he's been lately. How distracted. I keep telling myself it's just work, but," she exhaled shakily. "I can't shake this feeling." Anna's eyes widened slightly. "You think he's cheating?" "No," Catherine said quickly. "Not cheating. But I need to be sure he never would." Anna frowned. "What are you saying?" "I want you to test him," Catherine whispered. "Flirt a little. Just see if he reacts. Nothing serious. I just need to prove to myself that he'd never crossed that line." Anna stared at her, stunned. "You can't be serious." "I am," Catherine said quietly. Please. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Anna shook her head slowly, her voice unsteady. Kathy, that's dangerous. You're talking about manipulating your husband. You're talking about me pretending to seduce him. It's harmless, Catherine insisted. He loves me. I know he does. I just need to see it. Need to see him choose me. Anna stood pacing. You don't understand what you're asking. Then don't do anything extreme. Just small things, conversation, attention. If he's solid, nothing will happen. You'll see. I'll see. And then I can finally stop. Her voice cracked. Stop feeling like my mother. That last word hung heavy in the air. Anna turned slowly, her expression softening as she saw the tears forming in Catherine's eyes. You're not her, she said gently. Catherine looked away. Aren't I? Anna hesitated for a long moment, then finally nodded. Okay. If it helps you sleep, I'll do it. But just for a few days. Catherine exhaled in relief and reached for her hand. Thank you. You don't know what this means. Anna gave a small, uncertain smile. I think I do. The days that followed felt like walking across glass. At first, it was subtle, a touch on the arm, a playful compliment, an extra laugh at Cooper's jokes. Catherine watched from the sidelines, tense but fascinated. Cooper's reactions were textbook, polite, detached, uncomfortable. See, she told herself. He's faithful. This will end soon. But the test had taken on its own gravity. And gravity always pulls. Anna began spending more time near him, offering to help with dinner, asking about his work. Cooper remained courteous but uneasy. He mentioned it once hesitantly. Your friend's affectionate, he said one night as they brushed their teeth. Catherine forced a laugh. She's just being friendly. He studied her reflection in the mirror. You don't find it strange? She shrugged. You're imagining it. He hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. That was the first lie between them. And Catherine had built it herself. By Friday, the house had changed. The air felt charged, the kind of tension that crackles before a storm. Catherine planned to meet a client across town that morning. Cooper had taken the day off to handle a project from home. Anna was in the kitchen, humming softly as she made breakfast. Everything looked ordinary. Too ordinary. She kissed Cooper's cheek goodbye, her mind strangely light. By tonight, she told herself, it would all be over. He'd pass the test, and she'd finally be free of her ghosts. But fate, like love, has a cruel sense of timing. Halfway to the client's office, her car stalled at a red light, engine sputtering, dashboard flickering. She cursed softly and pulled to the side of the road. Rain had started again, thin at first, then heavier. She tried the ignition twice, but the car refused to start. Unbelievable, she muttered. She called Cooper. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. A hollow feeling began to spread in her chest. She turned the key once more, but the engine coughed and died completely. With a frustrated sigh, she decided to walk back. Just 15 minutes, she told herself. Maybe she could swap cars and still make her meeting. But as she approached the house, something inside her shifted. A heaviness, a dread that made her steps slow. The curtains were drawn. The lights dim. And from upstairs came a faint, rhythmic sound. Muffled, intimate, unmistakable. Her heart stopped. The hallway swam before her eyes. No. Not possible. Not him. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last, her breath breaking in shallow bursts. When she reached the door, she hesitated, fingers trembling against the handle. Then she pushed it open. And the world shattered. There they were. Her husband. Her friend. The people she loved most, tangled in the very betrayal she had scripted. Anna froze, eyes wide with horror. Kathy, don't. Catherine's scream tore through the air, raw and jagged. Don't say my name. Cooper turned, his face pale, disbelief written across every line. What? What are you doing here? Catherine's vision blurred. You were supposed to prove me wrong. The words escaped before she could stop them. They hung in the air, terrible and naked. Anna's mouth opened, then closed again, tears streaming silently. Cooper's eyes darkened with realization. What did you just say? Catherine's throat tightened. It was my idea, she whispered. I told her to test you. To see if you'd ever betray me. Silence. Thick and endless. Cooper's face crumpled, not just in anger, but in heartbreak. You didn't trust me, he said softly. You built this. I thought, her voice broke. I just wanted to be sure. He shook his head slowly. And now you are. No one moved. The storm outside roared, filling the silence between them. And in that sound, Catherine heard everything collapsing. Not just the marriage, but the illusion that love could ever survive fear. That night, she packed her bags in silence. No shouting. No pleading. Just the echo of rain and the faint hum of what used to be their life. When she closed the front door behind her, she didn't look back. Some endings are too final for words. The rain had stopped by morning. Catherine sat in her car, the engine idling, the wipers dragging across a windshield now streaked with yesterday's storm. Her suitcase lay in the back seat, the same one she'd taken on their honeymoon. A red tag still dangled from the handle, faded but legible, C, Hail. She stared at it for a long time. The letter C looked foreign, like it belonged to someone else. The sky was gray, thick with unshed light. Everything felt suspended. Not broken, not whole, just waiting. She thought of going to her mother's house, but the idea of walking into that small, memory-soaked living room made her stomach turn. Instead, she drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, past the bakery where she and Cooper used to buy croissants on Sundays, past the park where he had once proposed, a trembling ring box, a picnic blanket, her laughter spilling like sunlight. Memory was cruel like that, choosing its moments with surgical precision. By noon, she pulled into a small roadside motel. The kind of place built for stopping, not staying. The room smelled faintly of bleach and air freshener. A single chair, a small TV, a bedspread patterned with abstract blue leaves. She sat down, hands folded in her lap, and for the first time in weeks, the silence felt alive. It wasn't accusing her. It wasn't forgiving her. It was simply there. She turned off her phone. No calls. No messages. Not yet. When she finally drifted into sleep, it came in restless waves, half dream, half memory. In her dream, she was back at her mother's old house. The wallpaper was peeling. Rain tapped the roof. Mrs. Miller sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Across from her sat Catherine as a child, swinging her legs under the chair. Do you ever stop loving someone? Little Catherine asked. Her mother smiled faintly, tiredly. No, she said. You just learn how to live around the love that's gone. Does it hurt less? Her mother didn't answer. Outside, thunder rolled softly, as though the world itself sighed. Catherine woke with tears on her cheeks. The sun had lowered, slicing the room into gold and shadow. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The fight, the betrayal, the sound of her own voice breaking the air. She sat up, numb, and reached for her phone. Still dark, still silent. She didn't know whether that was a relief or a punishment. Finally, she turned it on. 3 messages. The first was from her boss. Missed you at the meeting today. Hope everything's okay. The second from an unknown number. Please call me. We need to talk. The third from Anna. Her thumb hovered over it for a long moment before opening it. Anna. I never meant for it to happen. I swear. You asked me to test him, but something changed. I don't know if I was comforting him or myself. I don't know what to say that will matter. Please believe me, I didn't mean to break you. Or him. Catherine stared at the message until the words blurred. She wanted to hate her. She wanted to call, to scream, to claw back the version of herself who thought control could substitute for trust. But underneath it all, there was something quieter. Something dangerously close to understanding. Because hadn't she also broken something she meant to protect? The next morning, she checked out of the motel and drove until the city thinned into open road. The radio murmured static, the kind that feels more like presence than noise. Her thoughts unfolded in fragments. He'll move on. Maybe she will too. Maybe that's what was supposed to happen. The road stretched endlessly ahead. A ribbon of gray cutting through pale fields. She wasn't sure where she was going. She only knew she couldn't go back, not yet. Maybe not ever. A few days later, she found herself at a coastal town. a place she'd once visited with her mother as a child. The air smelled of salt and old wood. She rented a small cottage overlooking the water. The owner, an elderly man with kind eyes, didn't ask questions. She liked that. In the evenings, she walked along the beach barefoot, the cold surf biting at her toes. The sea was always moving, even when it looked still. That fascinated her. Somewhere beneath that calm, entire worlds collided and drifted apart unseen. One night, she found herself writing in a notebook she'd packed without realizing. Not letters. Not apologies. Just fragments. Sentences that didn't need an audience. Maybe love isn't about trust or proof. Maybe it's about the quiet courage to accept that you'll never truly know someone. Not even yourself. She read the words back and felt nothing. Then something. Then nothing again. A week passed before she received an email from Cooper. Short, restrained, careful. Subject. Just so you know. I've signed the papers. You don't have to reply. I don't know how to make sense of what happened, but I don't hate you. That's the only truth I have right now. See. She read it 3 times, then closed her laptop gently. She didn't cry. Outside, the ocean kept breathing, endless, indifferent, alive. Catherine sat on the porch, watching the horizon fade into dusk. Somewhere beyond that line of gray-blue water, she imagined another shore, another version of herself. One who had never made that test, one who still believed love could be measured by proof. She could almost see her, standing on a similar porch looking back. And for a moment she smiled. Later that night, as the wind picked up, a knock echoed at the cottage door. Soft. Hesitant. Once. Then again. She froze, her heart leaping into her throat. It could have been the landlord. It could have been nothing. It could have been someone she hadn't expected to see again. She rose slowly, her hand hovering over the knob. The air seemed to hold its breath. She turned it, and the scene cut to black.